So you're camping, and ugly weather starts to roll in. Heavy rainstorm. Are you prepared for it? Either in a trailer or in a tent, you can have a living area and enjoy the rain without getting wet. I'll show you this in a minute. One of the first things you need to do is get a campsite with enough trees. So the last thing you want is a tarp that's going to blow down in the wind before the rain gets here. Trees are very important to set up a proper tarp, so things like the living room furniture can go in under the tarp and not get wet. I've put up many tarps of my 30 years of camping, and I consider this one of my better tarps. It's very important to have these tall trees, and I'll show you how you can set it up to be 11 or 12 feet off the ground. Now, the most important thing is finding 2 tall trees to be your guy points for the mainline cable. Now, the mainline cable needs to go high up in a tree, very high up in the tree, higher than you can reach. So what I use is a tarp pole. I feed the line on top of the tarp pole with a carabiner, and I feed it up into as high a branch as I need. I also make sure the branches are not downsloping, because the line will fall off. Once the 2 lines are attached to the tree and the main line is snugged up, you can actually lift up the tarp. The tarp can be lifted, and 2 other lines are used to keep the tarp taut, and those go down because the line, as you can see, has a very slight curve to it with the weight of the tarp on it. Because of that, you need to make sure it's taut in the middle of the tarp, or it's just going to wrinkle up. Next is attaching guy lines to the corners. I always put one guy line with an up-facing slope to a tree. I always put one guy line down to the ground, especially on the windward side. This keeps the tarp a lot more stable on the windward side. I do the same on the other side of the tarp. One guy line up, one guy line down. As well, it's also important to have proper drainage. And I always like concentrating all of the rainwater the tarp collects into one spot, right over here, for example, with one cable that's lower than the corners. The water will drain in one spot and drain away from the campfire and the picnic table. As a nice added touch, I like adding soft solar lights on the side of the tarp. They're a lot more calming and soothing than a Coleman gas-powered lantern, and adds a nice bit of ambience to the tarp. I also like having a kerosene-powered lantern, which gives a soft glow to it. So as you can see here, this tarp is big enough. It is 4 meters by 6 meters, and as you can see, the entire picnic table's underneath, where you can stand up. The fire pit's underneath, and our chairs will go underneath, and we can sit and enjoy a pouring rainstorm without getting wet. Now, one of the most important things about a tarp like this, with a fire underneath the tarp, is make sure you have 7 feet between the tarp and the fire pit. And never let the flames get higher than a foot. If you do that, the tarp will not get hot. It might get a little bit of smoke on the top, but the smoke tends to rise to the top of the tarp and go out the 2 sides. With something like this, you can survive many rainstorms camping and not have to go to your tent or go to the trailer. It's about the living space when you go camping. You want to stay up and you want to enjoy your living space. You want to have a dry cooking area and you want to have a fire and stay dry. And this is the perfect way to go about doing it. And I've probably set up 300 tarps in my camping life. And every single one of them is a little bit unique, but they follow the same type of standard in regards to that master guideline in the middle holding up all the weight. In a snowstorm, these 2 sides would be a lot more vertical to let snow ditch off the side instead of ponding in the middle. But it's still the end of summer here, so I'm not worried about a snowstorm, and there is a storm coming, so I'm going. I hope you found this informative.